If you're going through a breakup right now, I really feel for you. Breakups are one of the most difficult things to go through emotionally, and I think the best thing to compare a breakup to is loss, because you're essentially mourning and grieving the loss of a relationship or a person. You're not grieving the loss of somebody who's died, you're grieving the loss of somebody who's still alive, which presents its own set of challenges. As a fellow gal who's been through a really bad breakup before, I'm here to tell you how to deal with heartbreak. First step, and quite possibly the most important one, is no contact. Block him on all forms of social media, block his number, get rid of the pictures of him. Let's face it, in your most vulnerable and emotional moments, you're gonna wanna reach out to him and you wanna remove any possibility that that's gonna happen. And you know you're gonna stalk him on social media and see what posts he comments on, and you don't need any of that in your life. It's not good for you, trust me. Cut off all communication with him so that you have time to properly recover and grieve and process what's happened to you. Trust me, out of respect for yourself, it's the best way to go about it. It doesn't mean that you're never gonna talk to each other again, and maybe you don't wanna talk to him ever again. That's okay too, that's your choice. But for the time being, while it's still fresh and it still makes you really emotional, it's a good idea to lay off the contact. Second thing, also super important, is don't ruminate. It's really easy to fall into this trap of staying in your head and replaying moments in your relationship and trying to figure out what went wrong, or like if you could have done something differently, and just going down this really bad path. I know it's really hard to avoid, but it can be extremely toxic to your mental health if you do this too much. The best way to combat this is to distract yourself. Go work on an assignment, engage in an activity, call your best friend, just anything that gets your mind off of it. 3 is don't be alone. I know it's really hard to be around people when you're in an emotionally fragile state, but this is when you need people the most. Go visit your family or go on a hike with your friends, or if you really can't leave the house, ask them to come over. What you really need right now is somebody to comfort you and support you and take care of you while you're going through this really difficult thing. If you're just crying in your bed alone, it's really easy to get hung up on the fact that you're lonely and no one wants to be around you and that you're an emotional mess, and why would anyone want to be friends with this, let alone date this? I get it. I promise you, the people that love you want to be there for you, and you should let them because you really need it right now. My 4th tip is to take advantage of the time that you have now that you're not in a relationship and look at it as an opportunity. There's a bunch of different ways to go about this, but the first thing to do for sure is to reconnect with your friends. I find that when you're in a relationship, it's really easy to spend less time with your friends because you already have a go-to person that you want to do everything with. So even if you haven't talked to them for a while, don't be afraid to just shoot them a text or call them and say, hey, do you want to hang out? The worst they can do is not respond or say no. It's also a great time to do all the things that you wanted to do but haven't had time to do. Whether it's learning a language or finally going to the gym or learning how to sew, it's a great time to pick up a new hobby, spend more time on self-care, and do whatever it is you need to do to get your confidence back. After a breakup, it can be really easy to feel down about yourself and how you look, but if you take time to learn a new skill or finally take up kickboxing, you'll find that you'll gradually build up your confidence and feel good about yourself and realize that you were too good for that guy or gal anyway. Another thing that you can do is throw yourself into work or school, which definitely works. It's a great distraction. What I have found is that conflict often creates art, and you have plenty of conflict in your life right now. The pain of a breakup translates really well to painting or music or whatever it is that you're interested in. For this reason, I find art to be a really great outlet at this time. I know a lot of people are like, oh, but like I'm not good at art, and that's okay. You don't have to be good at art to do art. Art is one of those things that you need to do a lot of before you're quote unquote good at it. So I encourage you to just pick up a paintbrush or piano or whatever it is, just go for it. Or you can just do the classic thing of dyeing your hair after a breakup. I don't know why, but it just feels really good to change up your look and be like, oh, look at me without you. My 5th tip is to go to therapy. This is because breakups are often a good breeding ground for depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. Chances are, if you're going through a breakup, it feels really good to sit in front of a professional and have them tell you that your feelings are valid and that you're not alone. I highly recommend going to therapy to rant and get out whatever it is you need to get out, but also talk about grief and healthy coping mechanisms for the pain that you're going through. Especially if your breakup is making you feel super down or super anxious, definitely go talk to somebody. My next tip is writing or journaling, which I highly recommend because there's probably so many different thoughts going through your head right now. Writing is a really good outlet to just help you get all of that out. You might just word vomit whatever it is you're thinking onto the page. If you're feeling an urge to talk to your ex, write him a letter that you'll never send. It kind of scratches the itch if you're struggling with no contact, and it's a good way to get it out of your system. And my last tip is to take your time. I'm sure everybody's heard the quote, "Time heals all wounds," but yeah, it is true. Breakups are rough. You might feel worse before you start to feel better, and all of that is okay. There's no definitive timeline for getting over somebody. There's no like, oh, by 1 year you have to be over them. Everyone is different, relationships are all different. Take as much time as you need, and take more time than you think you need. You don't have to jump back into dating in a few months if you don't want to, and also don't get a rebound. They don't work. You're gonna feel worse. That's all my tips for those of you going through a breakup. Again, I really feel for you. Like, it's so hard, I know, but you just have to wait. You have to wait out the storm. Use your friends and family to get you through this. Distract yourself, and you'll be okay one day. I promise. If anyone has their own breakup tips, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, my name is Grace, and here's to being single.